Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. It's not dusty because I've been reading it. I just kind of want to have a rambling book talk today. And it could be 2 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. I have no idea where this is going to go. But I kind of like to know other booktubers' opinions out there. It was interesting. I'm kind of actually thinking about making this video for about 2 weeks now. About 2 weeks ago, I had a friend of mine stop by, and I had Eliza and Her Monster sitting out on the counter, and I had, what was the other book? The Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner, like 2 young adult books, and then I had a Goosebumps book sitting out there. And my friend said to me, he was like, do you still kind of read this crap? And I was like, what? And he was like, do you still read this crap? And I was like, and I didn't really say anything at first, and I kind of laughed. And he goes, I mean, it's cool, read what you want to read. He was like, but like, there are greater things out there to read. And I go, okay, so we kind of like ended up having, and we literally stopped by my house for like 5 minutes. And we ended up having this longer conversation about it. And I go, you know, like when we were at my house, what did you mean by, because we were driving around at that point, what did you mean by, do you still read that crap? And he was like, well, I mean, that's kind of stuff that like, you know, like teenagers read and blah, 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 whatever. And he goes, I know that you do that for your booktube channel. He goes, but don't you just like read those books to review them? Like, do you really read them and enjoy them? And I said, oh yeah, like I love these books. And he goes, well, which ones are your favorites? And so I was kind of going in and I was telling him, and I was like saying like, he goes, isn't it basically all like kind of Harry Potter stuff? And I go, no. And I was kind of explaining to him different genres within young adult. And he was like, I just don't understand it when there are so many great books out there that like help you be successful, help you grow. And I said, well, I read those books as well. And he goes, but why are you like, I don't understand like what your fascination is with all of that, like the Harry Potter. I said, well, first of all, it's not just all Harry Potter. And I said, you know, there's like contemporary young adult, which is something that I really enjoy reading. And I said, you know, listen, I said, a lot of these books that are so creative and so wonderful were not out there when I was out there, when I was that age reading those books, you know? So it's really kind of nice for me to be able to kind of go back a little bit and read some of those books that weren't available. I said, you know, when I was growing up, I've always gone towards fishing. Fish gone fishing. Always, you think so with this hat. Gone towards fiction, you know? And I will read nonfiction. I like true crime. I like some memoirs and some autobiographies. I guess a lot of memoirs I like. But by and large, I always read fiction. And in the last 2 years, it has been primarily young adult fiction. So anyway, he was like, well, he goes, I mean, I just always just read, you know, nonfiction. And his books are probably the top 10 on the New York Times bestseller list, nonfiction. I mean, that's what he always reads. You know, any party that we're at, he's always talking about those kind of books. And I've talked about that on here before, you know, that I feel like I need to read more of the books that people want to talk about at dinner parties because people don't want to talk about Cinder by Marissa Myers. Well, fuck them. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. And then they can get in line and they can start reading the things that I like. And, you know, it was interesting because I got very defensive about this very quickly. Almost to the point where I was thinking to myself, do you feel like there's something wrong with what you read? And it took me back to college. And so I don't know how much of this I've talked about on here, but my undergraduate degree is in creative writing and film studies. But, you know, as a creative writing major and English major, I had to take so many literature classes. And so I remember I took a Victorian literature class where we read like George Eliot and who else did we read in there? I can't remember. We read like Frankenstein. It was all this kind of Victorian lit. I wrote my paper on Middlemarch by George Eliot. That's why I remember that. So, but I took, you know, a whole class on Toni Morrison, and I took, you know, a Southern Lit class, which I absolutely loved, and like Eudora Welty, and, you know, all of those people, all those Southern writers, Faulkner, that I just, you know, I've read a lot of and loved. But when I graduated from college, I kind of wanted to read escapist fiction. You know, I no longer wanted to just read things that I felt like I should read because they were important pieces of literature. And I'm not saying that, you know, reading the canon of literature that is important to the world, okay, that there's anything wrong with that. I just had done enough of it where I was like, I need to take a break for a while. And then that break turned into me completely changing my reading habits to a point where I could not DNF a book, you know, to do not finish. I could not finish a book to save my life because I always felt like if you're gonna start a book, you have to finish it. Give the author a chance, give the story a chance, all that kind of stuff. And my reading habits completely changed today. Number one, I don't read a book unless I absolutely want to read that book. I don't care what somebody has said about that book. I don't care how great or how terrible it may be. If I'm interested in reading a book, I read it, okay? I do not care what quality to the world that book possesses. If that book is out there and it's going to give me enjoyment, allow me to escape from my daily problems, educate me, whatever the purpose behind the book may be, I don't really care. If I want to read it, I'm going to read it. And so it was interesting to me that I don't read books that I feel like I should anymore. And half-price books always screws me right when I go in through the main door, because when I go in, they have this huge section right in front, and it's like great. It's called like great novels or something, and it has all these books that I should have read in high school or junior high that I never did, like 1984, and all that Ray Bradbury book. I can't remember what it's called, Fahrenheit 461 or whatever. I didn't read those books, okay? And there's a lot of books that I have read, that I'm educated on. I've never read Paradise Lost, and I don't care if I ever do. There's a lot of, and I don't feel like it makes me any less of a reader. I don't think that it makes me any less educational. I don't think it makes me any less educated that I haven't read those books. Now, do I think that I could go teach a class on Ulysses or Paradise Lost or all those books, No, I don't think I could teach a class on Middlemarch, even though I read it by George Eliot. Couldn't stand it. Hated the whole thing. It was 1,200 pages, okay? I think I read it mostly while I was drunk. But I'm sober today, so that's the difference. But I just think, it's a really good question as booktubers that we're really talking about books on here. And I get so many people that say to me, I'm getting this book because you told me to read it, or I'm getting this book because you talked about it so highly, or you praised it so much, right? And that's a lot of, I think, pressure. Thank you. That's an honor. I enjoy that I can talk highly about like Eliza and Her Monsters, which is a phenomenal book, and I think everybody should read it, by Francesca Zappia. And that people will go actually out there and buy that book as a result of that, right? But I also think that inside of each of us, I talked on here and I joked in like some kind of tag video that I wish there was like Erica's erotica bookshelf or something, and there was this woman and her name was Erica, and she like drank wine and she reviewed like erotica. Like that fits within the realm of booktube too, And as booktubers, I think a lot of times there's this feeling towards you have to read a certain kind of book or popular books or whatever, which is really interesting to me, because then when I pick up a book that I saw out there and I read it from that was like 6 or 7 years old, and I read it and I talk about it on my video, a lot of people are like, oh wow, like I had forgotten about that book, or I've never heard of that book, or thank you for talking about it. Like I got exposed to something that I didn't know existed. And that's the wonderful thing about BookTube. And that's the wonderful thing about Bookstagram and all that kind of stuff. So while I believe that young adult books, which I primarily read, it's 85 to 90% of what I read, and it will continue to be 85 to 90% of what I read, because I think right now, and I'm going to make a blanketed generalization, it's the most creative fiction out there. It really is, because I think we're this explosive time where young adult writers who are writing to teenagers that will accept those worlds, and a few adults out there, 30% of adult readers, will say, hey, I can buy into this world and I can buy into this philosophy, and I think that's wonderful. But whether you're reading James Patterson, whether you're reading Debbie McComber, who I can't stand, whether you're reading, I don't care, R.L. Stine, or Ulysses, or Dickens, or Jane Eyre, no matter what you're reading out there, or Stephen King, my college had classes taught on Stephen King, or Toni Morrison. It shouldn't matter what you read. It should only matter that you are reading. And it should matter that if it takes you a whole year to read one book or half a book, and in another year people read 400 books, that's okay. That's fantastic. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the enjoyment of reading a book. Do you know what I mean? Like, I miss the days of going to the library and and when I go to Half Price Books and I'm just on a haul, I did this on a video a couple days ago when I just showed you guys a live haul that I went on, and I go in with very little purpose. I'm just I can't wait to find something that I want to read. I'm so excited in that moment because it reminds me of being a little kid and going to the library, and I have really no idea what I'm going to stumble across, and then I find something that ends up being one of my favorite books of life, and that is why I'm a reader. Because I like to find new characters, new worlds, and new places to fall in love. So I want you to list below why you love to read, what kind of reader you are, what you think defines a reader. What is a reader today? What does that mean, right? What is a reader? I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.